Alright, hello. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Today we are doing what seems to be like a step back from what we've been doing, but we're going to be looking at the effect system again today. There's been a small little detail that I've been avoiding when it comes to... So why is this open? That when it comes to the effect system that I didn't really address up to this point, only because it didn't really matter until recently. So basically what happened was yesterday, for the keen folks that might have saw me actually playtesting my game, they might have noticed that the game actually stuttered. And this is in release mode, by the way. But a game having like little stuttering is very bad, right? For a real-time application, which a video game certainly is, you don't really want any like stuttering. It's actually a very bad player experience. And so that got me thinking, at least when I saw it initially yesterday, why is the game stuttering? And it turns out the reason is because, well, we're allocating each of these effects on the heap. It's kind of not... excuse me. It's kind of not clear or obvious at first that each time we called add effect, we're actually creating an allocating new memory on the heap and then assigning it to a pointer, and the pointer gets inserted into a vector, and from that point on we reference that until it's dead. It became very egregious yesterday when we were testing out the Thunder Orb and we increased the frequency of the bolts from like 1 every 5th of a second to 1 every 20th of a second, because now we were producing a lot of them. So we were doing like 100 of allocations per second and deallocations. They were like being creating and dying at the same time. And that made me realize that if we're doing this for all effects and we draw lots of effects on screen, there will be stutters. So we're going to be working on fixing that today. First, I guess it would be an interesting way to show this is by upping the amount of bolts created from 3 when there's a found target to 1,000. By the way, I did fix this yesterday. I realized that if found target size is 0, then draw lightning bolts the normal way. So yeah, but yeah, if we found target and draw lightning bolts at a given position, I can add this for loop in here as well. And we'll just try it and you'll see what happens, because it's pretty clear that this is a bad idea. And the slowdowns become very apparent as we add more lightning bolts in general. Alright, so this time instead of producing just 3 bolts, it'll produce 1,000, which is clearly way more by a factor of 300, and that's pretty significant. That is not a small amount, right? So 1,000 allocations and deallocations every 1/20th of a second, which means in 20 seconds we would be producing at least 20,000 lightning bolts. So it would quickly reveal the problem we are having here. And not only is it going to be dynamic allocation that way, but yeah, as you can see, the game pretty much grinds to a halt with that many. And the reason is not because there are so many of them, but because of the amount of allocations. You can see there are 2 spawned now, which it's even worse because now we're doing double the allocations. So by the way, that is only about 2,000 effects on screen at once. And 2,000 might sound like a lot, but in reality, all it should be is iterating through 2,000 times and doing some draw calls to the GPU, which is very cheap, even if we're not batching the calls. So now we're at a point where we're like, okay, well, how do we fix this, right? Well, the clear answer is to get this from being heap allocations back to stack allocations. But that gets us thinking, how are we going to accomplish that? Because there's a lot of ways you can do that, and clearly we're not actually going to spawn 1,000 of these. That's not the case we're running, but I'm going to keep it like that for now for the sake of testing, because once we change it, we can basically prove that the system is much faster. So the idea here is, well, first we're not going to use pointers, because every time you have a pointer, well, you have to allocate that memory somewhere in memory and then deallocate it. So we're not going to be creating new pointers on the heap anymore. We're going to stack allocate, which means we need a defined space in memory where all this is going to occur. Now, I think the clear way to do this is to create an array, a fixed size array, mind you. We could also do a dynamic sized array, but there will be a reason I'll explain in a minute why I don't want to do that. So we're thinking a fixed size array of a certain number of effects. Now, we know for a fact that we're not going to create more than like 1,000 effects in the game. So defining an effect array of size 1,000 should be more than good enough. And I'm probably going to create an effect.h. It will be a static variable. And real quick, we can take a look at the effect class here. It's a relatively small class, so allocating 1,000 of these isn't going to be too bad. The total size of this struct is 248 bytes, so if we're allocating 1,000 members of it, we're allocating about 248 kilobytes of memory. So that's not too bad, plus or minus a little bit due to alignment, right? So I think that's okay. I can accept that. It's not terrible. But two things need to happen here. One, this needs to be able to handle inheritance, right? Because we have different types of members. So a member could be, or an effect could be a meteor effect. An effect could be a pulsing fire effect, or a sword slash effect, right? And this was our initial idea of using a pointer. Well, if we're not going to store the type data... If we're going to store the type data in the vector, then we have to keep them as pointers and or references. And so we're going to need to make sure it's like a reference wrapper at least. Wait a sec, maybe you create an array of coordinates, pass it to the GPU, and in OpenGL there's an instance rendering. So I am actually using OLC Pixel Game Engine, which abstracts away a lot of the OpenGL. So I'm not like telling it to like use OpenGL calls. I'm actually using draw functions, which then get added to a vector in the pipeline, and then it iterates through all these like GPU instances and then renders each one. So I'm not really keen on actually doing OpenGL calls in this because I would have to redesign a lot of the engine, which is kind of not a good idea. It would be nice, but the problem isn't quite that simple, I guess. Like, the rendering isn't the actual reason it's slowing down. The reason is because every single game tick, like every frame, we were allocating and deallocating, in that case, about... for each frame, we were allocating and deallocating 40,000 times, or 4,000 times per frame, which is a lot to just add and delete memory. So the slowdown is not trying to batch the rendering or anything. That would be a much more minor impact. But I appreciate the insight. That is definitely a way to go if we wanted to improve the rendering like time. Okay, so I wonder if we can use a reference wrapper for keeping type data. I'm gonna open up an example project here and we're gonna do some quick tests. Because I didn't really think about like the dynamic typing here. So let's open up this. So no matter what, it's a little tricky, right? Because essentially we have to create something that can hold data of varying types. So like standard variant is an option, which would essentially be a union, which in that case the size would be the largest data type in the union. That's a possibility. The only problem with that is that every time we add a type, we have to update the variant, like, typing, like, type list, which isn't a big deal, but it's something we're gonna have to do. So that's interesting. But I just want to see what happens if we do, like, a standard vector, standard reference wrapper of some, like, derived type, right? Like, that might be a thing we can do, but also we might have to just create a system that dynamic casts or something. That might be a way we have to go too. But let's just say we have something like this. I have a class A. Let me make a class B that derives from class A publicly. And let's just make another member called test. And I'm just gonna put another number in here, right? So let's say we store reference wrappers to class A inside of this vector. And I'm just gonna call this objects. And then in here, I'm going to attempt to emplace back a B class that I create. So B example. Just initiate it and then send it into here, like so. So I think it's gonna complain that's not of type A. Type name is, oh, wait, or maybe I should put the actual object, huh? Okay, so let's see if this compiles at all. Okay, so it does compile, so that's interesting. Now, the next question is, what is stored inside of objects? Is it an object of type A, or is it an object of type B? So it looks like it's an object of type A, which makes sense, right? But I assume we can dynamic cast it to get back out of B. So let's try that as well. B ref is going to be objects 0.get. And we're gonna have to dynamic cast. Well, I know it's going to be of type B, so I will actually just implicit cast it, but in theory you would use dynamic cast to make sure you can safely do that. Cannot convert from B to B ref. Oh, let me do standard ref. Yeah. I think that's what I have to do. Maybe? Let me see. A value of type void cannot be... Wait a second. That doesn't return a B, does it? It would be like... let me see here. Well, I guess since we're casting it, right? It's not really an object, so we have to store that somewhere. Like, it would be an object, a new object of type B, casted like this. Okay, so let me try that real quick and see if we can retrieve that type information or not. Now, how do we know this is actually a B object that was set? Let's change the B's test member from 6 to 10. That way, if it's stored, will it reference that afterward? Expression must be a modifiable L value. Oh, let me make it non-const. Okay, so it's saying test is 6. So this object does not have type data from here. Because we modified this. It was stored as a reference wrapper, but we clearly changed this reference, but storing as A. So the object got sliced. And so by casting it to B, it just default initialized test again. So that doesn't work. We could try a dynamic cast, but I think the same result will happen. So it looks something like this. Well, it would have to be like a reference, not a point, not an object. So it looked like this. The operands of a runtime dynamic cast must have a polymorphic class type. So it's actually complaining that it doesn't have a polymorphic class type. Okay, I mean, that's fair. Okay, so we can't use this method. So in either case, the only way to store polymorphic objects would be to store them as pointers in a vector. But we can still store all the objects together in memory, but we'll probably have to use like a standard variant at the very least. We could also use a standard any. I'm not actually sure which one I would prefer here. I think a standard variant only because it has like type checking. Could you type in chat the name of the tool or engine you use? Yeah, sure. Here is called the OLC Pixel Game Engine. It was developed by someone named JavidX9. He has a YouTube channel, and he has a community that helps create stuff for it too. But yeah, there's the name of that. Yeah, so I'm just thinking of ideas right now. I think a variant would be our best bet. And then if we wanted to access a certain object, we could write like a template function or a macro to actually get from it. Now, there are some key things I want to do with this on top of doing this. So let's say the system has like a variant of different objects, right? So it can be like a class A or a class B, but they're like derived, right? So, I wonder if I just want to use pointers then. Like pointers, but then the pointers would have to exist somewhere in memory, right? It's like I'm essentially accomplishing the same thing by just using a standard variant here. Like, let's say we had... Oh, here we go. Like, we can just have something like this. And that would be okay. Assuming I add the variant library here. Okay, so again, we can place back EX, but then to get out the object, we have to... And I was thinking like we could write a template function or a macro that would simply say, okay, if we want a B, right, we would write that. We write out something that would essentially do a... I forget how to get this. It would be like standard get. And with the type name. I think. So it'd be something like that. Let me take a look, because I am a little confused. Or I just forget. So in our entity system, we do have like a variant that we use here, so we can actually look at that. Oh, it is. It's standard get and then the type, followed by the variant variable itself. So standard get object 0 dot get. Well, it wouldn't be dot get anymore. And that would be a B, and hopefully that B contains the actual object we're interested in. And indeed it does. New object is the object we stored originally. So the idea then is to store all variants of that effect in one container and be able to choose between each variant based on what it actually is supposed to be. So we would make some kind of template function called like get effect. And it would probably look something like this. We have a type name, T. And we can just say get effect and include the type here. And it would return the reference to it as well, so we can access it. So get effect. And then we provide... What would we provide here? So it'd be like... We'd have to provide an ID or something. So originally what I was thinking was... If we have a standard array, because we aren't going to use a vector. The reason why we're not going to use a vector is I don't want the vector to dynamically resize. And then all references to it, like... Essentially, the whole reason why I used shared pointer originally was so we can have a way to reference them, but the effects can die as well, right? And I would like not to have boilerplate every time where I say, okay, is the effect alive? Like, this system should be able to handle that. So we would be adding some kind of like wrapper called like effect ref or something, which would be on top of whatever the effect is supposed to be. So then we would take this variant and it would actually be stored inside the effect ref in a way that we actually have to go through this class to get to our effect. So we actually have a vector of effect refs. And the job of the effect ref is to have some kind of Boolean function that says whether or not an effect has expired, kind of like a weak pointer, right? And an effect has expired if the lifetime has ran out, or if the effect is no longer the effect it originally referenced. So that's kind of a weird concept, right? But the idea is that we have some like some integer index that we store. So this is like your effect ID. And let's say it starts at 0 and counts up, like the game will have like a global effect ID. So we can just say like int global effect ID or something. And this can count up by 1 every time an effect is added into our game. So wherever we make our add effect function, we increment this each time and assign whatever the effect ID is into effect ID. Then we check in our effect ref objects to look for, you know, a given effect ID. So there is GL position. It means it's possible to use GL functions or shader language features. Yeah, the OLC Pixel game engine uses OpenGL, yes. But to make it work with the current way it's done would take a little bit more effort. Yo, when is the full release happening? So, it's still up in the air. Like, I'm not setting a hard date, but I know that we're going to be done with Chapter 4 within probably a month from now. So that means Chapter 5 remains, which could easily be another 2 months of development time or so. And if it takes about 2 more months, then we're looking at, what, June, July? So then after that, I have to do a lot of testing, a lot of polishing. So you can imagine another like 2 months for that. And this is only if, you know, everything is on schedule and everything works out. So realistically, I could see sometime near the end of the year as being a very reasonable date to aim for. But there is no hard date, and I'm not rushing to release it on said date. So for now, that is probably the best answer you will get from me. Hopefully that's a fair answer. Yeah, so I'm trying to put this system together right now, and it's like, the idea is that if we have an effect ref class somewhere else, it will reference the correct location inside this vector. So there might be like an effect ID, but then there will also be a hidden, so like this would be more like a private member as opposed to the other ones, which would probably be public members, which would be like an array slot ID. So the concept is that if a new effect has to be added, it looks into this like fixed size array that we're going to have to find an empty slot, right? An effect is empty if it's expired, and then it's going to use that slot in place of the old slot, which is why we have an effect ID. We also then keep a list of all effects that are currently active, and if an effect dies, then we say, or we remove it from that list. So we always have a list of active IDs, so we know which ones are dead. But we can also determine if an effect is dead just by if the lifetime is 0. So that's a possibility too. So does that mean we even need the effect ID? I don't know. But the whole idea is... Actually, I think the array slot ID and the effect ID are essentially going to accomplish the same thing. It's like, we want to know which slot in this array we have. But let's get a more practical example. Let's say we have an effect 1 and effect 2. And let's say this whole array was full, right? Just full of effects. And we add effect 1. Effect 1 was already in the array of 1,000 objects. And effect 1 dies, like it's done emitting, it's past its lifetime, so it dies. Now effect 2 takes over. Any location in code that stored a reference to effect 1 should now indicate that it is dead, while effect 2 takes over. So I think the idea here is that the effect ref would look into the array slot ID it has stored and say, okay, are you still the same effect ID I was originally given? Because if not, then you're not the same effect anymore, right? Like this would honestly be like a reference, I guess. Hi there, Plasticky. I see you trying to type a mat. I am a mat. Hi there. Amy! You're doing good. Hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Yeah, so I think this is going to end up being like a reference or a pointer. We're going to have a list of effect refs, and then I guess internally we would have the actual effects. So like, this would be... The effect is effectively the standard variant, right? So this is the actual effects list, and supposedly this is going to be like hidden away. We're just doing some brainstorming right now of how we're designing the system. This new effect system, it's going to be a fixed size system that allows us to store references of them throughout other objects, but those objects know if the effect is still alive or has expired. So this is like the gatekeeper, I guess you could say. It's like a... it's more like a manager of the effects. I could call it like the effect manager. And it just stores effect refs in it. And it's what we actually index or we look into to figure out if our effect is still alive. I think that's how we're going to do this. And so when we call something like getEffect, it's actually going to give us the effect ref tied to any given slot. So maybe getEffect... I don't even know if we would have a getEffect. We would do this with like an addEffect, right? It'd be like addEffect. addEffect would return or add to our list. It would add a new effect ref to effect manager, and of course a new effect to effects. And inside of effect manager, we'd say, okay, what slot is open? We would essentially find a slot, right? So it'd be something like find slot, find open slot, and then insert the effect into that slot via a new effect ref object. It'd be like new effect ref, and in here we'd assign to that open slot. So it'd be like open slot. You'd have like a const int available slot. Realistically, I use a size t here, but It's only gonna go up to 1,000, so I think an int is okay too. Find available slot, like so. What else will we have to do to populate this? And the effect ID, which would just be assigned from global ID. So it'd be like, we have some kind of global effect ID, we just set it and we increment at that time, right? Something like that. So that's what we're looking at in terms of how the effect ref works. And that would go like that. And then we would have the effect itself, which is just, okay, give us an effect object, right? So it would be of type T, it would be an R value, new effect. So we wouldn't need this, I don't think. That's not really necessary. It'd be more like that. And then of course we wouldn't return the reference to it. Instead we'd return the effect ref tied to this new object, right? So the new effect ref goes in here into effect manager, so that's going to be what gets returned, because then placeback will return the reference to it. But then the new effect we created has to get placed back into the effect place there. So then we've kind of tied these two data structures together to each other, so that we have a way to go back to it if we need to. Hi there, Ambit Coder. Welcome to the stream. Also, Plasticky, my day is going pretty good. Just brainstorming and figuring out what to do with this code right now. Trying to piece together a lot of thoughts going on in my mind as we design this new system. So, I guess the effect ref, if it's not expired, we need a way to get to it. So, like, I'm just trying to think of this in terms of, like, the weak pointer thing, because essentially acts as a mini weak pointer. So we would end up getting like the effect ref from this, which is stored in here. So it would be like, I'm just trying to think, what type would it be, or how would we get it, right? Because we're gonna dynamically get it, but then we need to actually turn it into something. So it would be a template function. It'd be like a template. And I would just call it get or something. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like, lock, it doesn't really make sense because we're not really creating, like, a lock to it. It's not going to continue to exist. It's going to be more like a get. So it'd be like, get using whatever type T is, return that reference of that effect, right? Get. So thinking more like reference wrapper style, we can actually get it. But I guess we can check for if expired first in here. If expired, this returns, like, I guess this would be an optional? I don't know if I like that. If it's expired, I think we should throw. I feel like we should make sure it's valid first. So that'd be like a throw. That should not happen. And then if it's not expired, we would actually return the object by looking into the effect list and returning wherever it's located, right? So we would do like a standard find if or whatever in here. This would be like find the effect, return whatever, wherever it's located, right? And it would have to be properly, because it's a variant, so it'd have to properly be converted like so. So it looks like this. So I think that's what we're looking at right now. So I like this idea. Let me see the practical use of it, right? Like, so again, let's just say objects that I'm placed back. Okay, so we wouldn't do this. We would call, let's try to use the code we just made, because one thing is when you're designing or architecting a system, even if you've got the rough idea of what you want to do, you need to try it and see like, okay, is this how I actually want to use it in my game, right? So if we want to ever make a new effect in our game, it would be something like this. It'd be add effect, we'd create a new type B, and we'd initialize it to whatever, right? And then we're gonna get an output to it, like a reference, right? The effect ref. And then we can store that wherever we want. It can be a pointer, it could be a ref, it doesn't matter. Let's just say we're gonna use it as a ref, right? My effect. And then we're like, okay, let's say we have my effect. Now we're gonna try to use it like later. Like we stored it in an object, now we want to access it, right? So we would have to say, let's see. This would be private. This shouldn't exist. Actually, let me think about, does this one exist? If we store a reference directly into the slot, I don't think that matters. We can just look it up later. That's fine. I don't think we need the effect ID. We're only interested in these two functions being public. So it'd be something like if not, and maybe we can add a Boolean resolution to this as well, so we can just use the syntax if not my f, or if my f. I think that would be a cool way to use it. And then we would just like optionals, right? We can say my f.get. We have to, what are we supplying here? Well, we just so how does it know what type it is? That's the question I have next, right? I guess it would have to auto-deduce it. Like, would we have to say ourselves, we're expecting a type B? It would have to look like that, right? But then, again, how does it know? How does it know this? I don't think it deduces it like that. We would have to put, like, the type name in here, wouldn't we? It would have to look something like that. Which I guess is fine. I don't mind that syntax too much. So far looks okay. It looks usable. But like, how do we prevent this from being stored? Because what if I want to store this, right? I shouldn't be allowed to store this. What if this only returns an R value and not an L value, right? If it returns an R value, it becomes non-assignable, right? We can no longer assign it because we can only assign, yeah. It must be an L value. So, since it's now an R value, we can't assign it anywhere, and that's on purpose. We can only use it. So, like, we could be like, alright, we can get the B and then, like, grab something from it, but we're only allowed to store effect ref. We're essentially making it so it's impossible to store the internal effect here. That way, the only way to access an effect is through the effect manager. Even if we get a result from effects via get, we can't store it anywhere. I think I like that. And we can't store it via pointer either, right? That's not allowed? I'm pretty sure it's not allowed if you can't, like, we can't do something stupid, right? Like, my pointer by taking the reference to the R value? Like, that's not a thing, right? Oh, it is, but what does that mean? Wait, is that a thing? I don't know what that would return. Okay, now I gotta test this, because that's interesting. A pointer to an R value. Let's say we have a function. Let's just say we have a number here. My num is 7. And we have a function that returns this number, get number. Just returns the int, but as an R value. Returns my num. So since it returns as an R value, R value cannot be bound to L value. Wait a second. I guess this would end up being an L value, right? So you can't return that. I would have to return 7 or something like this, right? Because that is an R value. So then it's like, okay, can we store a pointer to that? Because that would be really weird, right? Int my num is get num. Like, I'm starting to think what this would do is let me change what the 7 is in memory. So every time I would reference that 7 again, it would be something else. Like, can I just do and my num, or wait, it's a pointer? So yeah, the reference to my num equals like 4 or something. Can I do that? It doesn't look like I can. Wait, if it's a pointer, I have to dereference it, right? Like, can I just assign it something else and then get num will now return 4? Is that what's gonna happen? I don't even know how this would work. This is fascinating. Okay, I just have random code I don't need. Yeah, let me get rid of all this for a second. We're just brainstorming. I have more stuff I don't need, apparently. Get out of here. Okay. Reference requires L value line 86. Line 86 is right here. Yeah, so you can't actually do this. Okay, so this just isn't allowed by compiler. It's just IntelliSense doesn't care. Okay, that makes sense. Static analysis says you can't do that. Which is good. That's essentially what I'm looking for. Is that should not be allowed. And as long as that's not allowed, then we're good. Let me back up a little more. Too much? Yeah, too much. Okay. So we're back to here, or back to... So you can't store it, you just have to modify it directly if you need to access the effect. Can I... Like, this could be a problem, though. Like, this syntax is kind of weird, right? Like, it would be kind of annoying if I had to do this every time. So maybe there would be, like, a static version of this function called, like, get effect. I guess it could also be templated. But that's what I'm thinking of going with this. But the idea is simple. We should be able to transparently decide or get and store an effect somewhere in memory, anywhere in an object, and it will determine if it's still alive or not. So in most cases, you're just adding effects and letting them die. But in some cases, you're storing the effect and you need to access it later. And so knowing if it's still valid or not is important. So I like the idea behind this. I think we're going to go ahead and try implementing it now. That's like, it's got all the pieces, as far as I can tell. So before I start, I'm going to commit what I have here, because this was a lot of like the Thunder Orb lightning bolt emitter changes. So, Thunder Orb emits lightning for its target when nearby. And this is release build 13059. Okay. Because this is going to be a pretty big refactor, so because of that, we're going to need to make sure we're on a fresh commit in case we have to undo changes. Alright, so let's get started on implementing it. It's kind of... I wouldn't say it's over-engineered, but it's definitely getting close to it, but the complexity is partially required in order to make sure it's used correctly. Again, in a way that is impossible to mess up, right? That's the goal. So I guess we'll start with the effect ref itself, which I'm going to put inside of effect.h for now. So it's gonna look something like this. So the biggest thing we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to have a using, and we're gonna call this like effects. And under here, it's going to be standard variant of any variant of effect that we would want to include in the structure. So we have the base class, and then we have all the derived versions of the base class. Should be like meteor, pulsating fire. Like every single class will have to fall in here, and unfortunately this has to be done manually. It's gonna be something I'll have to remember. But then again, I think this will be fine because standard get, I think, because it's a template, standard analysis will catch if we don't include something in here. Like for example, let's say we tried to add in an object C, right? So if I do class C, also derived from public A, let's just say it has its own member called testing, and we tried to make one, but we don't change what the variants are in here, it shouldn't even allow us. Like, we can say add effect C, and nothing should happen. Well, let me see. It's probably gonna try, and then it'll complain when it gets in here, because this is a template function. When it tries to do and place back, it should probably complain there. Like, I need to actually make this code correct, though, if I wanted to see that. But I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. Let me move these out of here. And then maybe we'll have a good test method. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So let's try this now and see what happens with static compilation. And isn't oh, let me just do that for now. But essentially we would find it, so it wouldn't be a 0. What does this complain about? Line 84? I don't know where my cursor, right here? Oh. Yeah. Line 104? Okay, I just forgot some semicolons when I was writing some code. So yeah, and placeback is not a member of... Oh, it's an array, I forgot. So we wouldn't be doing that. We would be finding whatever place to add it to and adding it there. So it'd just be like effects, whatever it finds. I'm just putting 0 for now as a test. And oh, I did the same thing. Be like this. Effect manager 0 equals, and it would return it. Okay, so let's see. Operator equals is deleted. That could be concerning as well. Let me see. Const subject must be initialized if not extern. Oh. Again, I was just making up something, but yeah, it would just, in this case, be 0. Initializing cannot convert to example ref. Effect ref. I didn't make like a constructor, did I? Yeah, so there would be a constructor here. It would just include the 2 members. So it looks something like an effect ID and an array slot ID. Like so. And array slot ID. Stored as effect ID and slot ID. And it would look like that. Okay. Attempting to reference a deleted function. Effect ref 1000. Compiler is generated array here. And function has been implicitly deleted because the data member has either no appropriate default constructor or overload was ambiguous. This would be for the standard array effect ref. Oh, it doesn't have a default constructor. Right, so the defaults would be zeros, right? It would just initialize both. I don't have to like specifically say they're zeros. They're going to be auto-initialized. So there's the default constructor. And then standard variant operator equals attempting to reference a deleted function on line 103. So on line 103. Okay, so new effect is... Okay. So deleted move assign. Right, because it's like an R value, right? So I guess that would be a problem. Wouldn't we have to like... We'd have to like generate a copy, wouldn't we? To store? Okay, what if I do... I'm just trying to think here. At would return the reference to it. But we can't reassign... Can we reassign it? I think it's just because it's an R value, right? If it was like this, it would probably be okay. Cannot convert argument 1 from example C to tref. So... yeah. It would have to be outside here now. Example 2. Find out here and then pass that into here. Because it would be like a reference. Because I'm trying to think, originally I wanted to use an R value for that reason. So now it says attempting to reference a deleted function again. Because it's not included in the variant list, right? Is that the reason? So if my variant list had A, B, and C, would that work? Is the question. No. Operator equals attempting to reference a deleted function. So move assign is not a thing? That's weird. Let me see, what... I'm a little confused. Why we can't assign this? Like, it would have to be a copy? Would that even work? No, it still doesn't work. Like, move assign is deleted. I'm trying to figure out why. Is it because of what we're doing in effect? Where's effect? Oh, well, effect is a variant. So move assignment is deleted from a variant? That doesn't... Does that make sense? I don't think that makes sense, right? Like, we can do... Surely we can assign a variant to another variant? Like, let's say we had... Real quick, just... Say our variant BAC, num1 and num2, right? And let's say num1 stored in EX and num2 stored in EX2. Can I say num1 equals num2? Okay, so it has been deleted. So how would we resolve this? I guess I need to understand the reasoning behind why first. BS on Mac? This is Windows 11, so I'm not running it on Mac. Maybe we can't use variants then. Does that mean we have to change plans? Like, I could use standard any. Maybe that's the way we have to go. I'm just thinking... I don't... Because the move constructor is out of the question. Which, assign move would be required for this. It's like... It's not really an option here. So how would we do that? Like, why is assign move deleted? I guess is the next question. Why is assign move of standard variant deleted? That is in Korean, apparently. I wonder if it's deleted because of my own fault. It must be because of my own fault. Like, one of these objects cannot be move assigned. Let me see. But why would that not be why would that be the case? Oh, I didn't even see this. I think that is why, because const is on that member of that class. So it would have to make sure that everybody is assigned movable in order to make that template valid. Okay, yes. So... Okay, good. Okay, so that fixes that. I was a little worried. I'm like, why would standard variant not be writable? Okay, so that's fine. Which means this should be fine. Or allowed now. Well, it should be allowed unless I did this, right? And then it's like, okay, can't find that template. Example, on user create must return a value. Does it not? I just like delete it by accident? Oh, I did. But yeah, that's irrelevant to what we're trying to look at right now. Okay, so this unresolved external symbol. Example effect ref. Example effect ref. So it cannot find this function. Oh. Yeah, it definitely couldn't find that function. I could have said as default too. So this actually compiles, which is a little worrying because that is a type C being added here. So what actually happens to it then? That's my next question. Like, if that just ran, what actually happened? Because now we can look at here. What is this? This is a type A? Okay. So what if I add the type C into here? Then it works? Is there really no checking to make sure every variant is possible? I feel like that's wrong. Or maybe the compiler will just do its best. Let me see. Which is weird, because that is not what we would want. Okay, so this is an object of type C, because it has the testing member and the A member inside of it. But my concern is that it's not telling us that it doesn't exist in this variant. Which means, I guess on get it would fail. I would like it to fail on compile time. That would be nice. Because I wouldn't want to add a type C that didn't exist in the variant. Is that just not... I just find it weird that that's a thing. Like, you can literally assign anything into a variant? Since when? It's like, if I have a variant that can contain an int or a float, and I assign, like, a string into it, it lets it? I say vars equals word. Like a const char star, right? That shouldn't be possible. Because it just isn't one of the types, right? It doesn't resolve. Oh, you know what? I think I know what's happening. A type C is technically a type A, which is included in the template, right? If I removed A and C, I think it wouldn't allow it. Alright, let's see. So this is for line 103, which is right here with T being what? With T being a C? Okay, yes. So then it fails. But as long as the derived type is in the variant, it doesn't fail at compile time because it just object slices. So that means whatever base class we have, we can't insert into a variant. Which kind of sucks because I use the effect a lot as a way to... I would have to make like an I effect class, and then the effect class just derives from it, but uses everything from it. That way in the variants, we don't include the I effect class. I guess that's the route I would have to take, because I would like the compiler to tell us, hey, this thing doesn't exist in the variant, you have to add it, right? That would be nice. Okay, because there's no implicit conversion from those types. That's essentially what it's saying. But there is if we have effect here, which means we would get object slicing, which is a bad idea. So we would not want to include this, and we would want to include, or we would want to include an IEffect class that effect is derived from, but essentially has all the same members as a normal effect. So it looks something like this. Struct effect is derived from IEffect, and in fact, actually let's do this. So this is the IEffect class. And then we have a struct effect derived from the IEffect class. But essentially everything from it is the same. So all it would get is a unique constructor that would copy these, I guess. Like these would all become IEffects. Also, I think I have to do like a full refactor of these because I use effect everywhere. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's undo all that and then go. So we're going to rename this to now be IEffect. Apply. And let's see what happens. So this is a pretty major change that we're going to be doing, and adding a system, adding a layer of abstraction that's a bit complex, but I feel like this is okay. I really wish I didn't have to manually put in the names of those effects into the using, but it is what it is, right? So again, effect is in a lot of places. The only ones we don't want to change are like text. But anywhere that uses the effect class, yes. Don't want to change these. Those are just pragma comments. These are all comments, so we're good there. Comments are strings we don't care about. Change all that. So now, we're gonna make another class called effect that derives from IEffect. and it's gonna have all the same members. They're just going to be in here. So same constructors, which we're gonna have to create. Okay. And this would be like your normal effect where you don't really want to have anything special happening. You just needed to use the default behaviors. So everything just gets passed on. And the void function, the virtual functions will all remain as they are. Like there are no, what do you call it? There are no pure functions here. So if we don't override anything, the system will just work. No pure virtual functions. But we do have to make all these constructors that match the constructors on iEffect. And I think that's it. It is a struct, so default public. Let's go over to effect.cpp and add these in. Ooh, I don't know why there's a PowerShell at the bottom of my window. Okay. Let's find... So all these are the iEffect functions. Let's just add in the effect ones right below. Do a quick find and replace. That should be all we have to do other than call the derived iEffect functions. Which is... Let me see here. Yeah, I guess we would just pass these all into an iEffect version of this. It would look like that. We wouldn't have to do these because these are stored in the iEffect class, so it's done there. I can remove all these. Oh, there's a lot of... I'll have to do these manually. Or do I? Yeah. Some of these have like const on them, so I can't quite multi-select my way out of this one. So look like that. Should be good. All right. Ooh, we got a lot of stuff that we're about to do. This is gonna get pretty wild. So let me collect all the current effect names that exist. Let me just duplicate the tab here. There should be a shortcut for that. Duplicate tab. Anyway, I'll figure that out later. So we have foreground effect. Let me see what else. Spell circle. Oh, you know what? Let's just do this. This is easier. I can just scroll the bottom side and add it to the top. That would be way easier. Rock launch. Shine. Like, I don't know if I prefer this or not. It's kind of weird. Like, do I just want to bite the bullet and use a standard any while I'm here? Would I lose much from using a standard any? I don't think I would. I pretty much accomplished the same result. Let's go for standard any. I think I like that better. Okay. So, yeah, instead of this... Plus, there are a bunch of const members everywhere, so I would have to get rid of those. I think no matter what types I use, like, an any is copyable to another any. So... yeah, I think standard any is the right play here. I just want to make sure that we can, like, copy it around, right? Before we start building anything. We should be able to. I can't imagine we cannot copy it. I'm just thinking, like, are there any internals that would prevent us from even doing that in the first place? So, standard any test1. I need to add any. Back to our test project. So we have standard any test1 and standard any test2. So inside the first any, let's store the EX object. And then in test2, let's store the EX2 object. So in theory, I should be able to do something like test1 equals test2. And then test1 should now hold a C object, in theory. I don't know if it'll actually show up here. We might have to look at, like, some deeper stuff to find out if it's... Okay, it's not empty. It is an example C, so that's promising. At least the type is correct. As for how it's stored, that might be another issue. Like, we would have to anycast it, of course, to really understand what's inside. But, like, if I do, like, ex2.testing equals 400, and then I do test1 equals test2, and then I do standard C out, do an anycast to a C on... Is it standard anycast? I feel like it's just an anycast to a C on test1. We should get the correct result, in theory. And then it would be dot testing. So let's see if that works and it produces 400. It should. And indeed it does print 400. So the value got copied over as if it became... Essentially, it got overwritten from a B object containing whatever to a C object containing that member. So it literally did a copy from one object to the other. Now, does that mean if a member is const, it's not copyable? Like, let's say we made C have a const member, right? That means a sign move is no longer valid for EX2. So even though we can change it, can we still copy over? Or is assignment move just a dead... I guess you can still assign it. Oh. Wait, no, that's correct, because it does default to 1. So that is correct. I guess in this case, it would just... default construct... Like, I wonder if internally it's calling the copy constructor, but if there's a const member, it's just calling the... It's just defaulting it, because it's const anyways, right? So it would know what the value is. Anyway, regardless of the internals, it does have the behaviors we are expecting. So I think we're good. Like, it does compile, and it does what we expect, so I'm happy. So I think standard any is the play, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, I really don't want to maintain a list of all these effects like this. I think this is very unproductive, and if I add more in the future, I'm gonna have to remember to update this list. Why would I even do that? So I think we're changing that to a standard any. And I'll still make the using, because I think that's... Using effect type is just going to be a standard any. I'll keep it as a using because who knows, maybe we'll change it in the future. Keeping it as a using will make it easy if we want to update it. So we're going to start with this effect ref class. I shouldn't have closed my example because it kind of has the blueprint for what I need. I'll go ahead and put it on my other screen for now. Also, what happened to this? It's like the window just decided to combine. Anyways, I'm gonna put it over there for now, so I have something to look at. And under effect ref, we did add constructors. And we're thinking about using probably static methods versus globals here. So I'm going to put these two inside of the effect ref class as private static arrays, which would be allocated on the stack. These would be the max amount of effects we would allow for our game. So it's entirely possible when we add an effect, it doesn't actually add it because the effect list is full, right? But I don't think we will realistically hit that limit, and if we do, it's just the effect won't get created. I don't know if we should throw or something. Like, in the game currently, if the monster list, like the monster list has a max size, if the monster list gets too big, the game actually crashes. So we just make sure it's a number big enough where it will never have that many. Which I think we can do the same with this. Anyways, just thinking out loud right now. So let's actually write this out. So expired. We know it's expired if the effect ID in whatever array slot we're pointing to is no longer equal. So that's one thing we can check. So if, or return, it's expired if effects. So the one thing about it being an any is we would have to know what the type is, right? I guess that's the issue. Is like, we actually wouldn't know what the type is from here. Now we gotta think about that. I guess no matter what... Oh, never mind. We're looking at Effect Manager, right? No. Hold on. I gotta think about this for a second. Because, like, Effect Managers get store these effect refs, but, like, the expired function is supposed to be... Okay, so an effect ref is stored. Like, you grab an effect ref from this array, you store it in some class, because later you want to reference an effect. But you have to call .expired first. So you compare your effect ID to the effect ID in whatever slot is in the effect manager. I think that's how that works. Okay, yes, that's what we want. Because that's what the current effect ID actually is whatever effect manager... But that means you can't store references to... Does that make sense? Let me see. Because then you can't store references to this inside from the array. You would always return a copy. I guess that's the important part. If we create a new effect, we never return the effect reference directly. We return an effect reference copy. That's a big and very important detail, actually. So, effect manager array slot ID, or index... is going to be equal to, or is not equal to, whatever the currently stored effect ID is. So that's one way for it to be expired. Excuse me, effect ID is not equal to effect ID. That would mean it's expired. But if it's not expired by this method, it means the effect IDs are the same, so then you check inside of effects to see what is going on. But then again, you have to know what type it is, which again is another problem. It's like, because we don't know the type name, so we can't tell. It's like the lifetime of the effect would now have to be linked to the effect ref, which is not really possible. It's like any effect that dies would just have to be moved out. So maybe we don't actually want to do it this way. Like, because I see a flaw with this, right? There's so much conceptually we have to think about this to make it function the way we want. So maybe we go back to the drawing board for a second. Maybe the fact that we're trying to automatically do expired, like, effect detection is what's killing the complexity here and making it too complex. So maybe we'll jump back for a second and see what else we could possibly do. Let's look at a very simple example and try to figure out a way we want to handle this instead. Our goal, though, is to use a contiguous array so as not to, you know, not to have all these pointers everywhere. So I just have a grid real quick, right? And let's just say each slot represents one effect. And like the goal is that we look for an empty slot, we fill it in with an effect. Look for an empty slot, fill in with effect. Until like slots are filled. Eventually, one of the effects is going to be dead. Like the lifetime expires, right? So when the lifetime expires, then that slot can be filled in for a new effect. That's the idea. The fact they have to hold different types is irrelevant. We just have to know when they expire. So the expiry is important. It's almost like the effect should know about when it expires, but like this effect manager concept we're talking about should actually know when the effects expire. But then there are some places where we actually want to modify the lifetime of the effect in the effect. So there needs to be a way for the effect to communicate up to the effect manager. It wants to extend its lifetime. Please don't delete me. So maybe that's how we have to consider this, is that we can iterate through this whole array and deduct all the lifetimes of each effect from the effect manager. Like the effect manager is the what do you call it? The source, the true and only, the one and only source that determines if an effect stays alive or not. And when that lifetime hits 0, it's considered deleted and another effect can take its place, right? So I think that's the solution, is just decoupling or taking the lifetime variable out from the attached effect and moving it to an effect manager. Okay, so I'm liking the idea more because then we don't have to do anything really weird and complex here. If we're just going to make that little modification, it kind of changes everything. So first off, let me undo this iEffect thing. In fact, let's just start from the beginning again. So we'll undo the commit, like as a whole. We'll just undo all changes. That's why we can go, we committed, so we can start a clean slate. So let's try that route instead. We'll have a new class called the effect manager. The goal of the effect manager is 1, it's going to store the structure for all the effects, but 2, it's also going to know the lifetimes of every effect itself. I could include them as pairs. I don't think that's a bad idea. I'm just trying to think if there's any easier way to do that. Not really. I think we're good there. And then, but my next question is, how do we grab an effect, right? From the effect manager. We'd say, okay, I'm grabbing this effect. How are you going to make sure that we know this is still a valid effect later? Like, the effect manager, that's where the effect ref system comes in, right? It's saying, okay, I'm going to grab you, the effect, but only if the effect is still valid. And so that expiring system is determined by that. So let's say we have an effect ref that's supposed to be a link between you getting the effect, like you're allowed to get the effect, and you not. It's like it determines the state of the effect you're interested in. So it's going to clearly be linked by a slot. And again, this is where like I had the slot and effect ID thing, is the effect ID makes sure that that's still the same effect. If we add a new effect, how do we differentiate from a previous effect? So we can still have those two concepts. I think that's fine. We have a slot ID and an effect ID. And then in the effect manager, we keep track of which effect IDs are in which slots. So that's why originally I was going to have these be like iEffects or something, because I was going to have extra information about the effect. But I think this is only supposed to be information known to the effect manager, so it makes sense that it would be like a private class inside of the effect manager class, maybe called like effect data or something. So the effect data class can store... Well, we'll definitely have like a global ID here. It's like a effect ID. Global effect ID. Or effect ID counter. Either way works, right? So one of these, it'll be static inside this class. So that's one thing we'll need. And then I guess I'm inlining this. And then inside of effect data, we would need, one is what the effect ID is, and then the second thing is the lifetime of the effect, and then the third is the effect itself. So the effect itself, we're just going to say right now is the standard any. And then knowing which effect it's supposed to be is determined when we call get effect, because that's when we expect a certain data type, right? So it'd be a standard any effect. I think so far that's what we're looking at. So then when we pull an effect ref, we're essentially saying, okay, we're going to look into an array containing effect data to determine if that effect is still alive or not. And we have two things we have to check, both the lifetimes and the effect ID. Make sure both match. Both are valid. So we would have something that looks like this. This is the effect list. And it will be static. It will also be private. So we'll have an actual way to get into this in a bit. So for the expired, I think effect ref will be a friend class of effect manager though. Maybe not. I think instead we'll make like getters or something to get into that. So, bool expired. So inside of here, we're gonna return true if... Yeah, I need some way to get to this. I guess I could friend class it, like, if something else stores an effect ref, I don't want it to have access to the effect manager, is the thing. I don't think I really have a choice there. I guess one way I could do it is on assignment to... No, that wouldn't work. I was thinking if I assign like an effect manager instance to the effect ref, then it can just use it internally. I think we have no choice but to make it public or make a getter for it, right? Something like that. And it looks like we would have to make the struct public too, which is kind of annoying. Or maybe I can reorder it? Let me see. Is that a thing? Can I make the struct private, but the... I don't think that would make sense, right? Because if you can publicly access it, you're going to need the type information to do it. So the struct would have to be public as well. I guess that's fine. Sometimes I'm just thinking random nonsense. I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't make sense. You can't hide the type, but then expect to have something that uses the type and then try and use the type. Like, that wouldn't work. So we do effect list slot ID. I guess I'm gonna use at. I really don't want to use the braces. That doesn't feel very safe. So it would be effect manager effect list dot at slot ID is equal to slot ID. So if it's not equal to it, it's wait dot effect ID. Yeah, I'm looking at effect ID. Excuse me. So effect ID and dot effect ID are not equal to each other. So that's one way it expires. The second way it expires is if lifetime is less than or equal to 0. So that's another way. This would also mean that if an effect wanted to adjust its lifetime, it would have to know how to tell the effect manager how to do that. So it would have to know where in the array it exists at in order to do that. So that means every effect is going to be assigned an effect ID to match up, or a slot ID? Because what if an effect... Can an effect stay alive by itself? Is the question. I don't think so, because I think I'm going to... The way I'm doing it is I'm going to make it a system where you can retrieve it, but you're not going to be able to store it anywhere. Essentially, it becomes an R value. I think that's what I originally wanted. Like, the concept was you had this, like, duck get, right? And it would return an R value. So if you had that, can you assign it? I'm just trying to think. Would you be able to assign it, or would you be able to use it? Like, so you would store it, right? Add effect. Whatever. And you would store ex2 as an example. Then you would try to get it later, because you would end up getting an effect ref out of it. So then you would try to get it later by doing .get. You would type in your type name, and then from there you would be able to access these. But now, can you actually, like, do something to it? No, because it needs to be an L value, right? So then you would have to store it somewhere to use as an L value, but we can't because it's an R value? I think that's the issue we're running into. So it's like, how do we make this part of it modifiable? Because we're going to have to do some things in the future to modify. Maybe we can call something from it, but again, I think it would have to also be an L value for that as well. Like, for example, let's say C has a method called set testing, and you provide a number to set it to, right? So is it possible to set it to that via an R value? So then down here, right, we would call set testing to like a 9 or something. Okay, so that is possible from an R value. Interesting. So we can't touch the properties, but we can modify the actual results. Or the actual... We can call its functions. So... Okay. Let me see what's wrong here. Could be very... Oh yeah, I have to put the variant stuff back. It's going to be... B, A, C. And standard variant, attempting to reference a deleted function again. Right. Because I have another const here. I did that by accident. We're not going to be using const, so pretend it's standard any, but... example effects is not a name. Okay. Move those up. Wait, that's not right, is it? Like that? Just the ordering, I guess? It's not a type name, really? Okay, weird. Example effects. It's complaining about here. I'm not sure why. What did I do? This was working earlier, right? Refactor F get example C being compiled. Effects is not type name, static, or enumerator. I mean, it's part of this whole thing. It should be. I'm not sure why all of a sudden I'm having a problem there. What? It's not a type name. Anyways, let me change it to an any, because I want it to be an any anyways. And then we'll anycast this instead. Any cast to C. So then it would look like this, right? Wait. Hello? Am I not in the right C++ version? I am. Is it standard? Oh, okay. I guess I need standard. Abort. We threw. Where's my call stack? Here it is. Throw bad any cast. Okay. Is that... Oh, it's supposed to be a reference to it, that's why. So, add effect doesn't return the actual C, it returns the effect ref, which then goes through .get, so that is what we standard anycast to return whatever. So it's gonna look more like .get returns T, which is standard anycast to T. Oh, that's Korean. Let's not use that. Like so. Set testing is not a member of a... Oh. Well, that's not what we're gonna get, though. We're gonna get... a... Oh, we have to do .get. Okay. .get... C. It would look like that, right? Effects is not type name. So once again, we're at this, where effects is not a type name, static, or enumerator. Like, it just doesn't know what this is. Should I make it global? Will it know then? Expired must return a value. Oh, okay. That one's easier. Let's just return false for now. And yeah, that's the concept, right? And so ex2 now... Oh, it still has a value of 400. Why? Is it because it got copied? It got copied, right? So the way this would work is we accept only our values so that this doesn't happen. I think originally I was testing... Yeah, I was testing some things. I'm like, we can't accept our values into here, but yeah. It would be an R value. That way we prevent that from happening. So this shouldn't be allowed now. In theory. It's a template, so it's not going to tell me right now. Oh, it's still compiled. So I guess it's copyable as a... Would this be considered an R-val? I guess it could be. I was expecting it not to be considered an R-val. So I'm a little upset about that. That doesn't stop us from doing that, which would have been nice. I wonder why though. Like, that's actually got me a little confused. If this were a normal function, would that not work? Like, because it's a template, so it's like, but if I had a theoretical function that looks like this, and just had, like, in this case, a C, right? Would that work? Okay, so you can see here that this isn't... So now I'm more confused, like, what? If this were a normal function, you couldn't pass that. But this is a template function, which somehow lets you do that? Are R values just not a thing for templates? I mean, maybe that makes sense. It's like it's completely being ignored as an R value in this case. Okay, so this is invoking like an example C with C ref. So if it's a reference, it's like the typing, it's like this gets overwritten. So can I don't think I can do anything about that, right? Like, there's nothing I can do to force it to be. I just find that strange. I don't have enough understanding of like templates to say that is correct, but I need like this behavior essentially. At least I would like that behavior. I would not like the ability to modify it, pass it in. It's just kinda... That would be bad. That would be the opposite of what I would want. And I guess we could prevent it by just making sure our code doesn't do that, but I really would like the compiler to be able to say, hey, you can't do that. That'd be super nice. I guess the other way to force it is just by... Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if we can look up, like, only accept R values in templates. I don't know if we'll find anything about that. Like, I wonder if we could specialize it. I guess I don't know what the core issue is here. Because, like, is the problem that it doesn't generate the right one? Like, we could specialize it in theory, right? And it would use that one instead? But it's like... That still makes the other one valid, at least in theory it should. Also, I don't know if I need this, if I'm going to specialize it. Like, I don't think it matters. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. But I keep running into problems trying to make it work with that template thing. So I don't know if that's the route to go then. Like, there's gotta be... We could probably just think of a better way to handle it then. Because we're gonna need an add effect function in the end of all this. And it's gotta store any type of class. And then the getter has to retrieve that. But it's like, our original goal was to stop us from being able to insert things into the function or into the effect list and then modify them outside of it without having like a reference back into it. So it's like we just have to make a hard rule now that says you can't modify stuff that's outside. You're just not allowed to. I guess that's the only way to really handle it at this point. So I'm trying to think if there's any other way we can handle this, but I don't think there is. Not unless we do everything manually, which I don't want to do, right? I just don't... We might have to go back to the whiteboard a few more times for this, and maybe we'll have to spend all day tomorrow even figuring out more of how we want to actually design that, because this is turning into much more complexity than I originally was hoping for. I wonder if a macro would be better. Like, in theory, we could also go that route, right? So if this isn't providing us with what we're looking for, like, it can't provide this directly, then what about just macroing the type and outputting that instead? So it's like run these lines of code, but with an R value being accepted as the value inserted in here, right? So it'd be like new effect equals wait, is that even a thing? Can we even do that? I guess we technically could, right? But then wait a second. Then we run into that issue of I mean, the other way to force it is to use, like, a weird macro syntax, right? That is another way we could do it. I'm just coming up with more ideas here. It's like... Technically, it would only be an R value if we wrote what we wanted in the argument. So it'd be like an argument. And then this would be a macro, right? So it'd be like define add effect. Like something like this, with this as an arg. And then of course we'd actually include all this. I don't think the comments are part of that. So it'd look like this, more or less. At least that's what I'm thinking. Oh, do I need to put a space for any of this to work? Let me see. So I was thinking, oh, if it's a macro, like... Is this not how you do it? Hold on. Surely that's how you do it. Defines my multi-line macros. Yeah. That is how you would do it. Oh, did I put like an extra thing though? I think I did, yeah. That's probably why. It will look something like this, in theory. I don't know what was going on with those other lines, but maybe, like, the comment was breaking something. I don't know. Anyway, so if we have an add effect this way, then this would technically break because it would be passing an R value, right? In theory. Also, that needs to have a semicolon in it. Expected an expression. So instead of the return, it'd just be effect manager 0 coming out of this. So like I'm thinking, okay, we have this add effect, but how do we get more out of it? It's like, because it's not going to be a function. I'm just trying to think. Can we wrap it around, like, with a return value of some sort? I don't think this works for a macro either, unless I... It's like I would be making a temporary lambda out of this, and that way I can use it via a temporary lambda? Maybe. That might be possible, actually. Make a temporary lambda that actually accepts this stuff as like an R value. That's got me thinking maybe I don't need a template either, right? Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's say for a second... Because right now this is a template, but do we need the template? Maybe we don't need to rely on the template so much. And just say, okay, add effect. New effect is a standard any R value, right? Like we don't really care what it actually is, and just inserting it that way. I think we don't actually care, right? So, in theory, that's the way to go. Okay. So, does this fail now? Is the next question, because it's not template anymore. So this doesn't fail, which is annoying. Because it technically should. I guess it just doesn't... It's just strange to me that the R value thing is not working now. Okay, so maybe we just have to... We either have to live with it or think of another idea. For now, I guess we're just gonna have to live with it. It looks like I'm unable to find a way to prevent that from happening, so it's kind of unfortunate, but I guess we'll just move on. For now. We might brainstorm more ideas to get us around this problem. But basically, we'll accept anything, but ideally we don't want to modify them because we're going to get something we actually can modify going out of it. So then we would be making our get, right? And the get is supposed to be the templated thing. So it'll be template, type name T, called get. It would return a TR value that lets us modify stuff about it if we need to. And then we will return. And again, if it's expired, then we'll say, hey, something's wrong. We throw an error. Yeah. Also, I will be right back. Alright. Man, I am so jealous of C++ programmers. I do C# and Node all day and I feel like an idiot child. I mean, it just depends on what you specialize in and what you're interested in, right? Not everybody's gonna be interested in every single language or every single, like, project type, of course. But it's cool that you think that. And I mean, right now I'm struggling to figure out a way to get C++ to work in my favor, so no matter what language you use, you're gonna run into struggles with all sorts of random things, so yeah. There's never a win no matter where you're at. No matter what you're using. I'm gonna put warning here. This effect was not properly checked. For expiration, this should not be happening. Or I should say this is not allowed. Okay. Story of my life. That's okay. Alright, so if this does pass, then we can look into effect list and grab the correct slot and then return and then any cast the effect we're interested in. So standard any cast to type E of whatever effect is inside of here. That should give us what we want. So that's how we would get our effect. And then let's see here. So far so good. We have our effect manager. It looks tidy. An effect ref, which does what we want. So we'll always get an effect ref from an add effect function. So now we just need an add effect function. which I think we'll keep in adventures in Historia.h. So we'll go back here and let's take a look at that again. Right now it's a template function, which is fine. That's probably what we want anyways. So, you know, this might still be usable. I'm trying to think here. Why is it that this worked before, but not for... Yeah, that's weird, right? Maybe it's because we're trying to use standard any and standard variant that the R value thing doesn't work? Maybe. Like... Okay, that's interesting. So I'm just gonna keep it like that, actually. We just accept a T effect instead of a standard any as an R value, and then we insert that. So the way we're gonna insert it now, so we're not gonna do this anymore. Actually, I'll still support this thing, but we'll work on that later. So the return type for add effect is going to be an effect ref now. And it's going to be a copy of an effect ref. We made that very important. Effect ref is going to be pretty cheap. It comes with 2 members, and it comes with... these will be public. And the members can be private. So it's going to be a pretty small class, so it's easy to copy around. It is going to be 8 bytes in size, so that should be very fine. It's actually smaller than a word size. So yeah. It's just going to make things easy for us to manage these effects. So, add effect. Alright. I also want to add in the operator bool while we're in here. I think, hopefully I can do this from memory. So, operator bool. If we do inside of here, we'll need to, it'll be since it's a member function, it'll be comparing it against itself. I guess that's gonna be const effect ref, and let's see. It should return a bool. I don't know if we actually need that part, but I think we just return the bool and it'll check out. But basically we just call expired, so we return expired, and that determines that takes care of the bool comparison. At least it should. Amy too smart. Hi there, Asian prod. It's been a minute, huh? No arguments allowed on a user-defined conversion. Hold on, I have to look this up because operator bool is apparently wrong. Let's see here. Operator bool. Well, you're Yoshi. I know that. I didn't know if you wanted me to say it on stream or not. I don't think it matters, but you're Yoshi. Hi, Yoshi. Okay. Explicit operator bool checks... Well, that's not what we're looking for, is it? Operator bool... what are these called? I forget what these are called. Logical operators. We're looking for, like, the override for it. Let me see. Operator overloads. That's what we're looking for. Operator overloading. Okay. So in here, we're looking for operator bool. And we should be able to find it, hopefully. Okay. So... Boolean... Bitwise arithmetic... Hold on. Operator... Is it just operator equals equals? No, that can't be right. No, it's definitely like operator bool or something. Those are comparisons. These are other things. Assignment operator. I can't... Can you teach me to code so I can quit my job and go into programming? I mean... It's not as simple as just teaching, trust me. It's actually a very competitive environment, so it's very That's the thought a lot of people have, is like, oh, I'm just going to do college and then get a job in programming because it pays so well, right? There's a reason it pays so well. The reason it pays so well is because it's damn hard and it's damn competitive. Especially nowadays. And it's competitive for very different reasons from when I first started learning how to code. Like, a lot of people, you really have to get into, like, AI nowadays if you really want to be, like, cream of the crop. Which is unfortunate, but also the reality at this moment. But then, again, also, that's kind of taking... Things are shifting. There's a lot going on right now. And I'm not in the industry, so I couldn't tell you exactly, like, what is going on. You make a good salary, but you hate life every day. Aw, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm currently on vacation, so I'm just enjoying my time. Yeah, before I have to go back to working. But I'm having a good time. I've been enjoying life. Is it really just bool? Oh, I think I had to put... Wait, is that right? Hold on. That can't be right. There's no way. Operator bool. I'm so confused. That's not what I'm looking for. I think it's... What am I looking for here? I need a comparison to a... what do you call it? Comparison. Is it just operator equals equals? Am I way overthinking this? Is it operator equals equals? Explicit type is missing. Okay, and it returns a bool, right? Okay, maybe I was overthinking this. Oops. So that must be all I have to do. It's true if it's not expired. It's false if it is expired. No, not really. MMOs are still kind of how they always are, right? That doesn't really ever change. Okay, so if we're adding an effect, we're going to insert into the effect list. I think we just want to give effect manager control over that. Although, I guess I could just friend class AIL here. Or I can make a static function that calls that. Let's just do that. So static void add effect. And provide it that way, and then just write it inside of here. So, yeah, we'll just do that, I guess. But then I would have to make it... Give me your friend code for S2. Let's play it on a cloud save for Pocopia. Oh, I don't have Nintendo Switch Online. I'm sorry. I mean, I could get it, but then I'm also playing a lot with my girlfriend, so... Like, I just don't really have time right now. I'm sorry. Okay, let me see. Yeah, I think I'll just friend class this for now. Gasp. She said the forbidden word. Friend class AIL. Okay. So in here, I should now have access to that, so I should be able to do effect manager. Well, it was already public already, so did I even care to do this in the first place? I guess not. I guess we could still manage it in here. So effect manager, effect list. First we have to find a blank slot, right? So we have to iterate through all of them, find a blank slot if it exists. We'll just say find first of, or first if. Poor Yoshi was told no. Aww. Where's my wave? Has she been in the chat at all? I guess not, right? Oh, Cryptic. Yeah, I remember Cryptic. Cryptic Bun Hood. Noise Bun Hood, whatever, right? I remember Cryptic. Good times. So first we have to find an empty slot, if one exists. So we essentially have to iterate through all these and see if they are not expired. And the way we find out if it expired, again, look for effect IDs. And also determine if... So I didn't write the other condition, actually. The other condition, if it expired, was if lifetime was blank. Or was 0 or less. So I need to say or. So if this is true, then... let's see. So it can be this or... So it only does the or if these two are the same, which means the effect does exist in the array, but the lifetime, which with the grab, is less than or equal to 0. Then we know for sure that it's expired. Okay, so when we iterate through the effect manager effect list, we're going to filter it out. So we're going to say, well, we're going to find only one, right? So we're going to take one out of this, no matter what it is. Assuming we can find one. So if we don't find one, we don't add the effect and we fail. I guess that's what's going to happen. So if we get here, we would return the effect ref. And if we don't, well, we're just screwed. So inside of effect list, we have effect data. So it'd be const effect data inside of effect list. But then we're going to take a view. So we're going to say standard views. First we have to, we're going to take, let's see, while, drop while or take while? Let me see. I think we're going to say drop while, because the idea of drop while is it keeps going until it finds one. So I think that's what we want. So let's look at standard views drop while. Okay. Alright, a range adapter that represents view of element. Oh wait, that's not what we want. Drop while view models the concepts continuous. Okay. Where does it say what it actually does? Let's see, trims the output. So, what's the input? The input was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Drop while I is less than 3, and then it takes the rest. So that's not quite what we want. We only want to take 1 from that. I think we could do that though. Let me see, what else we got? So we have drop while. Do we have like take drop while or something like that? Or take... Basically whatever's the first one that matches a set of criteria is like what we really want, right? Pairwise, JSON transform view, latest view, concave view, join with view, split view, elements. So, I mean, we can filter view first and then go from there. This just skips the first n elements, which is not quite what we want. So I think what we want is a drop while view. My brain hurts, have fun. I'm going to go play Bravely Default for a bit. Okay. Well, thanks for stopping by. Good to hear from you again. Take care, Yoshi. Also, Bravely Default is pretty fun. So, hope you enjoy that. Okay, so inside of here, we're doing a standard views drop while. And so we provide the criteria for dropping. So the drop is going to happen if it's filled, right? If it's not expired. So we're looking for stuff that is expired to put them into. So the way we figure out if it's expired, again, is to see if that slot's lifetime has ended. So return if lifetime is less than or equal to 0. Return lifetime is less than or equal to 0, and then take that and just take the first. Standard views take 1, and then finally we have the information we care about. So then from here we just return it, right? We just say return. So we have to return an effect ref, so we'll make a new effect ref based on this slot. So to figure out which slot we're in, that's gonna be interesting, right? We have to keep a counter. Size t index. Starts at 0, counts up for each iteration through here until we return true. So basically it looks something like, if we include index in here, we can increment it as we count through this. So if lifetime is less than or equal to 0, or if lifetime is less than or equal to 0, just return true with the current index. Otherwise, increment index and then return false. Because this means we have found an empty slot. And then we would return the effect ref based on the... Let's see, effect ref requires slot ID followed by effect ID. So slot ID is index. Effect ID is just a global counter. So can we put it in here? The question is, will each templated function have a shared static variable? I assume so, right? That it wouldn't make sense for them to ever be any different. Let's just confirm real quick. So let's say we make 2 versions of a function via templates. Let's just call it template type name t get num, where we just pass in a number and then we get out a number, but we're gonna have a static variable in here. Static int counter, and it's going to increment over time. So we'll actually initialize it in here with a 0. And then we just increment the counter when this function is called. So the question is, what is the counter? And we can return num here. That way this function actually kind of does something. So the question is, what happens when we template this function 2 times with 2 different templates, right? Let's actually do this. We'll put t here, and then we'll say get num, and we'll just specify 7. That's going to create an integer version of that template. And then we're going to create another one where it creates a double version of that template. And so now, let's see if counter is going to end up being 2. Inline specifier can appear in a block scope or non-static data member. Non-static data member. Okay. My guess is it's... Oh, it does work. Okay. So we end up here. We didn't breakpoint at all. I wanted to breakpoint here so we could look at counter, so let's redo that. Counter is 1. Counter is 1. Okay. So lesson learned here, each template function return has a different version of it. So if we added another double version, now we'll probably see a counter of 1, and then a counter of 1, and then counter of 2. So here it's 1. 1, 2, because this version of the function now exists 2 times. Yeah. So that would make sense. It would probably be per compilation unit too, which is even more dicey. So we would have to keep that somewhere else. Like the effect manager, again, it has its global effect ID, so we probably need to use that. I guess I will friend class AIL here. So we can do that because it's private and I want to keep it private. And we just do global effect ID plus plus and provide effect manager and then go from there. So a little bit wild, but we're making progress here. We'll chip away more at it tomorrow, but I think we have the basic idea now. We have an effect manager class, which holds effect data structures. When we want to get an effect from add effect, we return an effect ref, which is a lock, or it basically blocks us from having direct access to the effect list. Instead, we have to go through this system to make sure we don't produce an extra copy of it. Or not an extra copy, but we don't have an invalid copy. Anytime we want to modify or get any particular effect, we have to go through this system. Which I think is a lot better, because then the management of the resource is handled kind of like these functions control whether we can access the data or not. So I think this is going to work out in my favor. At least I hope so. We're in the middle of refactoring the effect system from using shared pointers and being on the heap to being on the stack, using a standard array with some complex blocking to make sure, or resource management. So hopefully we get that done. We're making good progress. And it took a while to brainstorm how we want to do it, but I think we've got some good ideas here. We're going to continue implementing this more tomorrow, but for those of you that tuned in today, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.